So I woke this morning with the word clarity and the song Hallelujah in my head. Then I saw a video that said, your videos matter. At least one person is wanting and watching every one of them. And I was about to do my not so wacky Wednesday video on how to live through spirit instead of ego. And so I sat down and God asked me, why do you do these videos? And I said, because I want to help people who are lost find their way and know that they are not alone. And God said, yeah, but why else? And I said, because I want to be seen and loved and valued. And then I walked away because I realized that God just called me on my shit. I hadn't been seeing or loving or valuing myself. And so I came back and I started to do the dishes that were in my sink. And I turned on YouTube and found this video by Maya Angelou. Focus on yourself and stay silent. So this is Maya Angelou. There is a quiet kind of power that moves mountains, not by thunder, but by patience, not by noise, but by knowing. And once you learn to hold your peace and pour that energy back into yourself, the world cannot help but shift in your favor. So Maya Angelou was an answer to my prayer, because I've been guided to go inward and be quiet and still and take care of myself. And then there's this part of me that's just like, but we need to be productive, but we need to do something. We need to, what is the purpose of this anyway? And so I will continue with what Maya Angelou said, because this does not only apply to me, this applies to many, many of us, especially right now. And she had so much to say that I think maybe a lot of it got lost and needs to be revisited many, many times. So I'm going to keep reading, and I didn't write down all of this, but I wrote down what spoke to me. There's a silence that stings, and there is a silence that sings. True silence is born from wisdom. The kind of silence I speak of is not the silence of fear. It is the silence of knowing. The quiet that lives in the soul of someone who no longer needs to prove, to please, or to perform. It is the deliberate stillness of a person who has learned to protect their peace. Power, real power, doesn't clamor, it simply is. And in that isness, there is strength that doesn't rely on reaction. To be silent is not to disappear, it is to reappear in yourself. It is to gather your energy where it matters. While others chase claps and compliments, you chase clarity. While others drown in noise, you wade into still waters and find that you are not lost, you are free. You are focused. You have chosen silence not because you are empty, but because you are full. Full of reflection, full of awareness, full of a kind of self-respect that no longer wishes to be wasted on battles not worth fighting. You are here to understand yourself, and understanding oneself is the greatest kind of strategy. Silence becomes a sanctuary when the world gets loud. It becomes a mirror when people try to distort your reflection. In silence, you can hear your own voice more clearly than the opinions of others. You can sort through the chaos and locate your truth, the kind that isn't shaped by trends, gossip, or pressure. Again, this is Maya Angelou. Silence teaches you timing. It teaches you when to speak, how to speak, and if something even deserves a response. When you respond to everything, you dilute yourself. But when you choose your moments, you become unforgettable. Not because you always spoke, but because when you did, the earth paused. That is revolution in its most sacred form. Growth, healing, transformation take time, and they take place in the quiet. A seed does not shout when it's sprouting beneath the soil. The moon does not scream to outshine the sun. They simply become in their own time, in their own rhythm, with their own grace. Nothing is more powerful than focus. Nothing is more radical than restraint. And nothing is more graceful than knowing when to speak and when to simply, silently rise. There comes a time when you realize that giving all your time, all your energy, and all your love to everyone else has left you empty. Not because you are incapable of giving, but because you have forgotten that you too deserve to receive from yourself first. You were never meant to serve others from a cup that runs dry. You were meant to fill that cup with purpose, with peace, with passion, and then, if there is overflow, let it touch others. But the filling must come first. To focus on yourself is not to be selfish, it is to be sacred. It is to honor the vessel that carries your dreams, your pain, your power. It is to look in the mirror and say, I matter too. That is not arrogance, that is self-respect, and it is long overdue. Too often we are taught to be good. We must give ourselves away. That love means sacrifice, that strength means holding everyone else up, even when we are sinking. But let me tell you, this is Maya Angelou, love, real love, includes you too. It includes your rest, your boundaries, your growth. And if it doesn't, it isn't love. It's performance. You do not owe your constant availability to a world that takes without asking. You do not need to explain what you are choosing. You are here to live as the truth of who you are becoming. And truth, real truth, requires space. It needs time. It needs quiet. It needs care. Like a long-lost friend, I will no longer abandon myself to make others comfortable, because each time you betray your own needs, your own instincts, your own well-being, you teach yourself you are secondary, and you are not. You are the beginning of every story you will ever write. You are the root from which all your dreams must grow, and if you do not water that root, it will dry, no matter how many flowers you try to offer the world. Take time with yourself. Get quiet enough to hear your own voice beneath the noise of expectations. Get soft enough to hold your own hand. This is your life, and you are allowed to live it at your own pace. When you begin to grow inward, the world outside you begins to reflect that strength. Your self-focus is not just an act of preservation, it is an act of revolution. In a world that wants you fragmented, distracted, and dependent on approval, choosing yourself is the loudest declaration of freedom you can make. You are saying, I am enough. I am worthy of my own love. I will no longer wait for someone else to see my light before I turn it on. Focus on yourself not because others don't matter, but because you cannot pour clarity into somebody else's cup when your own is full of confusion. You cannot give light while sitting in your own shadow. When you begin to treat yourself like someone worth showing up for, everything starts to shift. People respond to the energy you give yourself. The more you respect yourself, the less tolerance you'll have for disrespect. The more time you give yourself, the more time you'll have for things that truly matter. And in the end, you will discover that self-focus was never selfish. It was sacred. It was survival. It was salvation. Growth lives in the silence after heartbreak. It lives in the long nights when no one is watching and you are left alone with your questions, your tears, your fears, and your hope. It lives in the quiet moments when you choose not to react the way you used to, when you choose to pause, to reflect, to sit with your pain instead of running from it. It is not a silence of emptiness, but of presence. The kind of presence that listens deeply, that allows space for transformation to rise from within. When everything is loud, we distract ourselves. We chase things, but when it gets quiet, truly quiet, we're forced to meet ourselves. And that is where the growing begins. You cannot force a seed to bloom by shouting at it. You cannot rush it by pulling on its leaves. The same is true for your healing, your purpose, your becoming. It needs stillness, it needs protection, it needs time, and it needs to be out of view from the noise of opinions, the weight of comparison, and the pressure to perform. Roots grow in darkness. They dig deep into what is unseen and uncomfortable. They go where others will not go, so that when the time comes to rise, they can hold you steady. If you do not allow yourself that time of quiet rooting, you will rise too fast, too fragile, and fall at the first gust of wind. We are not meant to grow all at once. We are meant to grow in seasons. And some seasons look like stillness, like isolation, like rest. This is Maya Angelou. But they are not dead places. They are sacred places. They are preparation. They are cleansing. They are the deep breath before the becoming. You may feel behind because your journey is quiet, because no one sees what you're doing, because the world isn't clapping yet. But don't be fooled by the silence. You owe yourself the patience to evolve without performance. Stay there in the quiet, in the stretch, in the unglamorous work of healing, rebuilding, becoming. You are doing the most important work a soul can do. You are growing roots. There is a hunger in this world, one that grows louder with each passing scroll and swipe. It is not the hunger of the body, but of the spirit. A need to be seen, to be validated, to be acknowledged in the eyes of others. And so many chase that feeling, not knowing it is a hunger that cannot be satisfied by the spotlight. Again, these are all Maya Angelou's words. Attention, like sugar, gives a rush, but leaves the soul starving. The desire to be noticed is not wrong, it is human, but when it becomes your sustenance, when it becomes your compass, you begin to lose yourself. You start crafting a version of you that it is easier for others to digest. You dilute your truth to fit into frames and filters. You shrink or inflate to fit someone else's idea of who you should be. And in all that effort to be seen, you become invisible to yourself. Attention is a drug, and like any drug, it gives you a high that wears off quick. It feeds your insecurities while pretending to cure them. It builds a false sense of self, one that depends on likes, shares, applause. But the moment these stop, you begin to question your worth. Peace comes from being real. You find joy in the small, unseen victories. The day you kept a promise to yourself. This morning it was me when I emptied the dishwasher. In that space, you start to create differently. You begin to live not for applause, but from authenticity. You start measuring your words by their alignment with your spirit, and when you speak, it carries weight because it comes from a place that doesn't need permission. Real growth craves connection, first with yourself, then with what is real, what is steady. You will crave conversations that start with, "Let me know you." This time I choose me, not in a way that denies love to others, but in a way that stops denying it to yourself. Every time you say yes out of guilt, every time you let someone cross a line out of habit, you are training yourself to live smaller than you were made to be. And it is in that quiet realization that something powerful begins to grow. Not resentment, but resolve. Not distance, but direction. In that sacred withdrawal, you are rebuilding. It is careful. I see what I need now, and I will no longer ignore it. In the quiet, you learn to separate what is yours to carry from what you were never meant to hold. As I clean my house, I let go of the books that were meant to heal others, and I hold on to the books that I find intriguing and mystical and fun and energizing. That was me, that little sentence. Now back to Maya Angelou. You begin to sort through all the inherited obligations, the emotional debts, the roles you were given but never agreed to, and with each realization, a line is drawn. Not a wall to keep love out, but a door to let self-respect in. The beauty of boundaries is not in what they push away, it's in what they allow to flourish when you stop overextending. You start to restore. Your boundary is your becoming. You are returning to your center. And from your center, and from that place, everything that is truly meant for you can find you without crossing your peace to reach you. The silence where boundaries are formed is a teacher. It shows you who respects your limits. It reveals which connections were rooted in reciprocity and which were built on convenience. You begin to live less from obligation and more from alignment. And as your silence deepens, so does your sense of self. You are allowed to protect your sacredness. There is a shedding, a letting go of the identities that you held on to and you thought were you. First, there is a loss, then there is freedom. And you begin to ask yourself, how do I feel? Do I like myself? When you've been to the bottom of your soul and made peace with what you found, you no longer need the world's permission to be whole. You are not becoming for them, you are becoming for you. The irony is, once you no longer need to be seen, you are seen more clearly. Once you stop asking for validation, people begin to feel your groundedness. They sense your inner anchor. And so now I must go back to my silence and my stillness and my being with myself and my mess, and sorting through what was mine to carry and what I didn't sign up for or agree to, and letting go of that. And who knows what will emerge on the other side.